welcome everyone to another installment of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived. You can pick them up anytime at ArtistFirst.com. If you'd like to send a question or comment, hit us up at DJ@ArtistFirst.com. And now here they are, your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And yes, it is Michael.
And Margaret.
Lyons. And this is welcome to another episode of The Soul of the Everyman. And I can cheerfully say that we take a lot of pride
in what we do.
In what we do. And tonight we're going to try to remain humble about it. Because tonight's topic, we decided tonight's topic we would kind of tackle one of the Seven Deadlies, as they're known, and these are not punk rockers or any of those '80s grunge metal bands. The Seven Deadlies are also known as the Seven Deadly Sins, and I'm not sure how they got that name, but it probably goes back to the beginning of time or the beginning of some religion. But of all of them, we can all agree that these characteristics, and we could name the Seven Deadlies, but they're sort of, if you will, the things that most characterize or really are at the fundamental root of a lot of the trouble that's in the world. Mm-hmm. And the foremost of them is often identified as the sin, quote-unquote, sin of pride. So tonight, he said pridefully, we are going to just knock it out of the park.
All righty.
You're up.
Oh, thanks. Well, I think we were in discussion before that a lot of people wouldn't even consider pride in the category of sin.
Mm. And it is kind of a funny thing to think of as being a sin. It doesn't look as though you're hurting anybody.
Right. I mean, because the other ones are kind of obvious.
Right. Gluttony, lust, lust. Lust is right up there. Sloth. What are the other ones? They go on and on. Not paying your taxes. I forget. There's a list over there.
All right.
But pride, it sounds like sort of a good thing. I mean, you say when you're conscientious and you do things carefully and well, you're often said to be taking pride in your work or pride in what you
your accomplishment.
Your accomplishment, and also if you look well and you speak well and act well, you say you're taking pride in your appearance. You're trying to maintain a certain level of decorum.
Right, or a certain standard is what that implies.
Right.
So you look at that, and when you first think of it, as you said, it just doesn't seem as if this is somehow a problem.
And I think generally that's the problem with that's the kind of the challenge of the word pride, is that it has two sort of distinct meanings. One is the sort of, let's say, the positive side of pride, which is really striving to excellence, striving to do the best you can, and then taking some satisfaction in achieving that excellence. And you can say to have realized something and have some pride in it. The pride of ownership is another wonderful phrase. Language always informs. You say when you own something, you're more apt to invest in it, take care of it. You could be proud of your children and proud of what they accomplish. And these are all good things. They don't seem to be, in any way connected with something that's negative. But the flip side of pride, ends up with, singularly bad dictatorships, hubris and arrogance, and to the heights of disregard to all others, the sort of unitary authority, this totalitarianism, is where the negative side of pride leads you.
It's connected up with power.
Yeah.
And there was a phrase that unless you can discipline yourself. It has no, trying to discipline others is of no effect.
Right.
The discipline's got to start with you.
Right.
So there's a, how do I say this? When pride becomes overblown, it's because the scope of influence has increased, and instead of it being just an awareness of the fact that there you have jurisdiction or power over this area or these people, you believe that it's about you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that this has got to be a reflection of my greatness.
Right.
And the my is really the descriptor, or the defines where your boundary is of what you feel is yours. It's like a possession of, you know, this is mine, this is my possession, this is my power. And you sit there and that's where the illusion steps in, especially when it comes to people, because when you have been given charge over people, there is a back and forth that's got to be. They've agreed that you're in this position.
I mean, leadership is truly a good leadership is a post of service more than it is a post of command in almost all regards.
And the leader actually is supposed to take into account everything before a decision is made, or everyone before the decision is made. And that is where the prideful actions come in. Where the offense begins is because people feel like they're not being heard.
Exactly.
Which is also very different from being heard, but not being given into. You know, because some people, they'll insist that it's got to be this way, but for the benefit of the overall group, it doesn't function. And that openness of thought and ability to work as a group should be taken into account. It becomes prideful when you basically feel that you have the only right way, and
my way or the highway.
Well, you know, even though you have been heard, you know, it's different if you're not heard, if you have no voice. And that's usually the, what's the word? Pride in another form comes in. Because you are either part of a group or you're not. And it's like a family, you know.
Well, a pride of lions is basically a family unit of lions.
Right, but they've got a distinct hierarchy.
Exactly, a distinct hierarchy, and that's another meaning of the word pride. The other word which often comes up in connection with the word pride is the word humility, and you know, one of the negative connotations of pride when you're moving in the negative direction of pride is that you become unitary, you become arrogant, you begin to believe, you know, the conquering heroes of the Roman era, the Greek and Roman era, were often feted to the heights. They were in essence given, you know, the ticker tape parade down the Canyon of Heroes, except it was, you know, whatever, the Acropolis or something.
There was a name for it, but where they're parading the spoils of war as well as their defeated foes and the whole
the whole 9 yards. And that during those types of parades, they would be given in essence the accolades of a supreme being, of a ruler, and they would almost feel as though they were, you know, it was very easy to feel as though you were above all others, akin to the gods, so to speak. And so they would always appoint someone who would be, in essence, there to remind the hero that, remember, you are still a man. You are still human. You're not one of the gods. And one of the reasons they did that was that it was thought that if you claimed too much, especially if you would proclaim to the gods that you were one of them or that you were greater than them, that there would be a great comeuppance. There would be this balancing of fate. There was a goddess who was in charge of such things, and if you would offend this deity and by claiming too much, pridefully claiming too much, it was thought that you would very soon come to a fall. So the phrase has come down to us, in latter days, that pride goeth before a fall, and it really comes down to what it meant was that if you would claim too much, say, I am the greatest, I am the most wonderful person in the world, I am akin to the gods, that the gods would say, hey Joe, we're gonna show you where you are, and in essence, very quickly teach you a lesson.
Mm-hmm. I think it was you didn't want to incur jealousy of the gods.
Exactly.
You like Too Beautiful.
Helen of Troy.
Well, not just Helen, but there was the race, the foot race, where it was between Aphrodite. The one that came from
Diana.
Diana and Hera, and who won the foot race was the one who had, I think, gotten the apple. I can't remember now. Isn't that awful?
There were apples, pride, and feet involved, but at the end of the day, it was again sort of an object lesson about arrogance, about pride, and bringing that sort of forward to the modern day. That's what that is about. That's what kind of pride as a deadly sin, or as as something to be avoided, is that claiming or putting yourself forward, or in essence feeding your pride and feeding your arrogance, leads to a fall, leads to a position where all the hands of all around you will be turned against you, because in essence you're claiming undue honor, undue accolades. It can result in a temporary elevation of a person to a position of great power, but then you end up with these dictatorships, which oftentimes end very badly. You end up, in a bunker somewhere, as the shells go overhead, because that sort of exercise of the I, and we have this wonderful graphic on the website, which should be up there eventually, where if you look at the word pride, there's a giant I in the middle of it. There's this kind of again, focus on the me, the I, the singular focus of your own ego as being supreme above all others, results in pretty quickly people getting tired of you. You wear out your welcome real fast, and it generally.
It becomes narcissism.
It becomes narcissism.
And where the only thing, again, the Greek mythology, Narcissus had been staring into a pool of water at his reflection and decided he wanted to marry himself.
Narcissus, but yes.
Yes, Narcissus. I'm sorry. And that whole, when you think about it, that is exactly what a narcissist, or a person who's so concerned about themselves, pretty much does. It's only about me.
Well, yes, and I am the most beautiful thing in the universe, so therefore, why wouldn't I marry me? Why wouldn't I, in essence, find no other in the universe is worthy of me except me?
Right.
It's all sing together in the key of me.
Yeah, no, that's and when you see that, it is a story in Greek mythology, but you realize that this has been going on since humans have been on the earth.
Oh yeah, yes. You can find stories, in the texts of Hindu mythology and Chinese mythology, going back into certainly many texts or many passages in the Bible, warning against the sin of pride and humor. Saul and David. Saul's main sin was in essence putting himself forward and saying that no matter what. The story basically and briefly is that Saul, who was king, was so arrogant as to believe that no one else could come after him as king, and that when David, who was named in essence the heir, the next king, Saul found this to be
unacceptable,
unacceptable, terrible affront. But regardless, the object lesson which is given is that beyond a certain level of sort of acceptable sort of pride in oneself and acceptable pride in your accomplishments and so on, you have to kind of beware. You run very quickly into the wall, if you will, of you are still just a person, just a man, just a woman, and we are not able to discount all other accomplishments, discount all others around us, and put ourselves so far forward without incurring sort of the societal wrath, if nothing more. Maybe it's the wrath of the gods or the wrath of the universe against you, but you very quickly find yourself in a position where what you do leads to evil rather than to good.
Yeah. Say that phrase again.
What you do leads to evil rather than to any sort of good.
Right. Well, it's interesting because when you think of being able to work together as a group, and you realize that there's got to be a back and forth. You've got to be able to respect another person and work together on whatever the project may be, or whatever the relationship is. And it doesn't last if everything is one-sided.
Yep.
That one can't be always giving, and the other one taking, because one gives out, and that's it. There's nothing left.
Yeah.
It's not a growing kind of thing. So if pride just allows your focus to be only on what you like, and that should be like a warning flag. That a lot of people who are very self-focused, their verbalization usually shows it. You listen to their conversation, and they only speak in the pronoun of I,
right,
or me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an exercise I used to give to a number of people when we were doing meditation. Because the whole idea of meditation is to let go of all the rationalizations and the endless whisperings that go on in your head.
Mm.
And I remember one person in particular who had trouble with this exercise. This is just an exercise to be aware of how often you say the pronoun I. So he began to try to do this, just in speaking, just a regular conversation with me, and stopped. Took a breath, and wanted to say something, and then stopped again.
Well, the point was that you had given them You'd give them a rule. It said you can't use the word I or me. Actually, I think you said
I.
you can't use the word I, and then they said, well, how about the word me? And then you're like, no, no personal pronouns.
Right.
And let's try to have a conversation without the word I and me.
Mm-hmm.
Words I and me. So go ahead, sorry.
And that was the point. The mindset was so crystallized that the idea of using any other pronoun proved a difficulty. The perspective was so ensconced in how I felt about this and how whether or not I like it,
right,
or what I don't like about it, and it's like, no. Let us speak without the pronoun.
Right. In essence, getting them to be non-self-referential. When you have a real conversation, it's often, or it should often be, about things which have nothing to do particularly with you. They could be an opinion. It could be a situation. It could be about.
It could be. You start with observations, and that was really what this was about. Meditation had to do with the observation of the consciousness upon your own thinking patterns and feeling patterns, as well as breathing patterns, and to begin to understand and distinguish between that array of consciousnesses. So the verbalization was in the unconsciousness. This was a step into your unconscious programming. And it is very interesting to try to do that. Because when you do that and you begin to realize that, how many times have I used that pronoun I? And we found a number of people could not do that initially. They had to practice.
Right.
And it eventually got to the point where they did not use the pronoun I or me.
Right.
It was fascinating. It was absolutely, because suddenly your perspective expands. And then I remember one person saying to me, well, it's not important anyway, and went right back to the old pattern.
Of course. Because the other thing about pride and hubris is it becomes very comfortable very quickly. It's a really cool world when you're the greatest thing in it.
And if you are the greatest thing in it, you don't, again, have to apologize for anything.
Everyone has to bow down. And your opinions about things, or how it affects you, or what you think about it, or whether you like it or don't like it, is everyone's concern. Your happiness, your day-to-day, moment-to-moment comfort should be everyone's goal, to make you comfortable at all times. So you can rapidly see this becomes toxic and narcissistic and extremely to the extent of it becoming almost clinical, almost pathological, and truly can become pathological, and then you end up with your Hitlers and your Pol Pots and so on. Pathological narcissism and power as a third chakra kind of, I'm going to take over the world and be a powerful narcissist, gets lots of people in lots of trouble very quickly. Whole nations and countries and many people have died in pursuit of a narcissistic sort of unitary dream. So the sin of pride is because of the way it's quite seductive. It's quite it really kind of draws you, the siren call of, yes, you're the best, most wonderfulest person ever, and everybody should be listening to you and doing it. I mean, you see it in celebrity.
Well, if you absolutely need to have people telling you this, then there's a problem.
Oh, yeah.
You can be very good. You can be excellent. You can be the very top in whatever field you may be in. But you don't need to have anyone else tell you that. You know it.
Mm.
But when you have to have that constant echo going on, it means that you actually, in your core, do not believe it.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly looking for that reflection instead of being it.
This is actually an excellent point. The heart, the root of pride is the emptiness. Because at their core, prideful people do not feel truly great or truly accomplished. They know that their centers are hollow, and they need that external prop all the time.
Well, maybe that's the difference then, is whether or not you need that constant echo playing in the background.
Hmm? Or maybe that's the difference between, quote unquote, the true pride of accomplishment and the one sort of the false pride of narcissism and having everyone tell you you're great all the time, and every external sort of accolade of greatness that isn't truly fueled by a true heart greatness, a true sense of accomplishment, a true worth,
a true being state.
Yeah,
a true being state. It's not. It's not what you would do, and if I was in charge, I would do this, and it should be this, and it should be that. It's like, no, what have you done?
Mm.
Where are you now? What do you have that you can actually pull up and show?
Right.
As opposed to, well, again, I know how that feels, and I think you're like, I
undeserved. And the most interesting thing about it, and I think when we do come out from the other side of the break, we'll talk about it, is that truly great people are often very humble. They're not shouting their accomplishments to the rooftops. They have an internal self-worth that doesn't require any external acknowledgement. They know what they've done is good, and they're self-satisfied and happy with it. I don't think prideful people are not generally self-satisfied and happy.
Mhm. Mhm. And to be comfortable in your skin is always something that we try to bring to, the children. If you are truly comfortable with yourself, you really don't need the outside accolade or the constant running monologue.
Absolutely. And with that note, let's take a little running monologue to the studio and listen to some prideful statements about what people want to sell, and we'll come back.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the fourth Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indy Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
When tornadoes raked the South, it was ham radio that was on the air, saving lives. As communities lay in ruins, it was the hams who let their families know their loved ones were safe. When the power and cell phones went out, the hams were there, helping rescuers get the message through. Wherever catastrophes strike, amateur radio is ready. Amateur radio works when other communications don't. Contact the ARRL, the National Association for Amateur Radio, on the web at emergencyradio.org. That's emergencyradio.org.
Hi, my name is Christina Garlick, and my new book, Nevada Rain, is now available. It's a sci-fi fantasy story for ages 14 and up. I hope you check it out, and of course enjoy. Also, you're listening to the ArtistFirst radio network that has a station for everyone.
Taking God on Patrol is a first-person account of the world of law enforcement from the perspective of a Christian police officer in the fourth largest city in America. From speeding car chases to the crossing of the thin blue line, author Mark S. Cariner seeks to find God's biblical truth in a behind-the-scenes look at law enforcement. And check out Mark's newest book, The Tactical Heart. Both are available at Amazon.com.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. And it is with great pride that I reintroduce Margaret and Michael Lyons.
Well,
Hey, we'll take that.
yes, thank you very much, C-Man. And yes, we're back to the second half hour
Of the Soul of the Everyman
Soul
show.
of the Everyman.
And this show is on Pride, but I think this half hour we're going to take a more humble tone.
Oh, have we been arrogant?
Well, I don't know how to answer that. The phrase that comes to mind when we're talking about pride, we're talking about hubris and talking about kind of, justifiable pride, if you will, and then the true narcissism. The other phrase that always comes to mind is the lovely, let the last shall be first. If you want to be first, humble yourself, serve. And it is biblical. And obviously it's one of the sayings of Jesus. But I think what you really want to look at it from the point of view of truly, if you're a true leader, if you're somebody who has truly accomplished things, you're often quite humble. You don't need to prosecute your authority. It's not only is it given to you, but people want to listen to what you have to say because your words, your leadership, your way of kind of drawing people together and getting something focused and done works. So true leadership and true power often comes from people who are quite, or rather, often is given to people who are quite humble about it. Almost saying, well, if you're the leader of a group, let's say an army or whatever, you oftentimes have to make sure that everything is done for the people who you lead. They all get everything first before you do. You're not the primary. You're the servant. You're the servant of all as you lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. Because you basically are taking their needs into consideration first. And it can be very draining, complex to be able to open your eyes up and see from the perspective of the people who work for you. And really a lot of compassion you really need a lot of compassion, especially if you have a large group. And pride, at that point, you extend that concept of what is yours to the people that are with you, and truly considering them as people, not just things that feed me and give me the reflection I want. These are people who also understand that you are reflecting something to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they're following you. So if they're giving allegiance to you for a reason, it's taking that reason into account when you make your decisions and observations, and putting forth something that is for the good of the group.
Mm.
And they're trusting you at that point to make decisions, even though it may not be to the liking of everyone in the group.
Yeah, very true. And the other thing is, true leaders, again, don't when there's an accomplishment that is done by the through the efforts of this group. Let's call it a team, because that's what it really comes down to. If you're leading, it becomes a team. It becomes a group effort with a directed, focused leader. Leadership is a funny thing, because to be a good leader, you have to be a good listener. You have to be a good decider. And those two things are oftentimes a balancing act, because, as you just said, you can listen to all, but then you have to say, okay, I've heard all you people. I understand what we want to do, but you're wrong, you're right, and we're going this way. And you have to make sure that when you make that decision, that it's obvious that you've considered
Mm-hmm.
what was given to you, the information that was given to you, but you pick a direction, because the heat death of listening endlessly and never actually going anywhere, sort of endlessly cycling, is one way to never lead. The other sort of arrogant death of listening to no one and saying, we're going this way because that's what I want to do and I don't care what you people, that doesn't get you very. It's a middle ground, and it's not something you can define easily, because a true leader is a servant of the team. Oftentimes, the accomplishments of the group are because of leadership, but again, the leadership, the quiet servingness of a leader, or of somebody who doesn't indulge in the hubris and pride, is that all the people in the team, regardless of perhaps their individual talents or how much that one contributed versus another, feel that it is something they can all be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is something that you're trying to get to. When your team is proud of what they're doing, you're doing a great job as a leader. When your team is looking at you like, oh, XYZ, so-and-so, she takes all the credit for everything, and all the rest of us are just making her look good, well, you have failed as a leader, because that's the arrogance, hubris part of leading, and everyone in the team feels like they're doing their part to get this big job done, and we're all really proud of it. Then you're doing a great job as a leader. It can look from the outside very similar, but in the internal dynamics, it's very much how the pride is shared amongst the team.
Mm-hmm.
There's no high. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, the credit to the accomplishment. Is it inclusive or exclusive?
Exactly. That's exact words. Is pride, arrogance is exclusive.
Mm-hmm. And unreal.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a large part of why people reject it, because it is a lie at that level. Say, oh, this is all because of me, and the rest of you, I could do this with any group of you morons, you peons. I can turn any group of peons into a functioning team. Who needs any of you? It's all me. Well, that sin of pride will get you very little at the end of the day, except a lot of people being unhappy with your leadership.
Yeah, it brings grief and pain, and that's for a team. You cannot function like that. It just brings shoddy work and shoddy communications, relationship. The whole thing breaks down.
Mm.
It becomes almost a free for all.
Mm. When you really see how a team is functioning well is when something goes wrong. Because good leaders also take the blame that isn't deserved. They say, I realize that, we had a problem here, that we failed, and the I here is important. I take responsibility. I led us to this problem, and we're going to make it right. But somebody has to leaders take also very easily and almost cheerfully take the blame, and almost reluctantly, almost without, almost instinctively say, don't take the credit. Because if you will take the blame and push away the credit, you will get, just like the last will be first, you will get the credit and nobody will blame you. On the other hand, if you do nothing but say, everything is every good thing is me, and when something goes wrong, you start pointing fingers, say, if you didn't wear those yellow socks the other day, we would have got that job. Well, you know what? You become, in that case, all your efforts to push blame away from you means that everyone looks to you and says, you're the person. The hubris, the arrogance, ruins a team because, again, the old stupid saying is there's no I in team, but there's a big I in pride.
And it's understanding that. I mean, truth be told, that realization that suddenly you have overstepped your boundaries, because some people get a real high off of power. And that's all I want is that high off of the powers, because it's all about me, and I'm inflating myself with all this power, and aren't I beautiful? It's like, no. Oh, you are too much.
Too much, exactly. That's where, the Greeks and the Romans after them had it right, is when you inflate yourself, everybody's standing by with a pin to prick you and let some air out of your...
A few knives in the back, yeah.
Yeah, et tu, Brute. But if you humble yourself, and it sounds wrong, because you're like, well, wait a minute, I really did do the good thing, and shouldn't I get some credit? Yeah, you will, as long as you don't claim it for your own, loudly say, I am the greatest, I am the one where we got everything. It also, Margaret, is very similar in ways to, again, go back to the Bible. The Pharisees always came in for a lot of approbation, because they're the ones who would be very arrogant, kind of proclaiming how wonderful they were all the time. And what were they called? The ancient term was a whited sepulcher. Well, what does it mean? He said on the outside it looks very beautiful, but just as we said before with pride, the inside is empty, hollow, full of corruption and decay. It's a tomb.
And death.
And death. Truly, the sin of pride is a whited sepulcher. It's a beautiful out exterior with a rotten core.
Empty, and nothing. No life.
No life.
There's no life there. Maybe that's really the core of this, is understanding that you must have life in a team. That back and forth actually produces life. That relationship, the conversations that occur, brings life to the project, brings life to the group, brings life to the company, brings life to
the family.
And that's when you know it's real. When there's no life there, people automatically pull away. They pull away when anything reeks of death or dying. Like the rats jumping ship.
Again, the core of pride is this insufficiency, is the lack. is I really don't think I deserve any of this, but I'm going to claim it anyway. And the core of humility is, in essence, I know I'm good. I know that I deserve all these things, and I don't have to claim it. The heart energy, and humility is a heart energy, and pride is a third chakra, gut energy. When you move it up into the heart, you know that your heart is full. You know that what you're trying to do has worth.
Right, and it's more than just the know of the head, because when everyone says, I know, it's always a mental picture. The knowing is a deep knowing from within. It's a being state. It's a being state, not just this head knowledge. So you've accomplished something, achieved something, truly achieved something, and you hold that within you, knowing that everything else that's happening around you has to come up against that being state of accomplishment, that this is true. This is truly who I am in the core of my being. And everything else that's happening around you may say something to the contrary, but it can't do anything because you've already got the I am this being state.
It has intrinsic worth.
Mm-hmm.
It is in and of itself a worthy thing. It doesn't require external accolades. In fact, nothing external, no saying against it, can actually influence it. Can actually harm it.
Right.
Versus pride, true pride, real arrogance. It's the emperor's new clothes. Is when you crack through pride, it shatters like glass, and all of a sudden it's revealed how empty and how insufficient and how that's why again the phrase pride pride goes before the fall, because when your pride is cracked, when you're suddenly revealed to be a fraud, a phony, a poser, you're just claiming these things and don't actually deserve them. All of a sudden you crash down to the lowest depths, and you realize not only do you have no worth, but you have less than you started before. You have nothing. You have no shell. You're revealed as an empty vessel. Something full of corruption and decay. You can't do that to someone who has something that has true worth, because even were you to try to destroy it, you're unable to take away its intrinsic value.
Mm-hmm. No matter what the pressure. If anything, it turns into something far more valuable. It's like coal turning into diamond.
Yes.
Under pressure, you turn into something priceless.
Right, and pride under pressure turns into something worthless.
And, the motivation of it, I think, is interesting, because it's that fear.
Yeah.
The fear is the motivator for that false pride. You want to project this strong exterior, this powerful exterior, because you're afraid that you will be revealed.
Exactly.
How empty you are. And the compassion that's needed. I mean, you must be compassionate to yourself or to that being. And it's hard. Let's face it. When someone's acting like you don't want to give any kind of grace to them, any compassion to them, any, they're deriding people, they're spewing poison of all kinds. But when you realize at their core that they're really afraid that you're going to see how empty they are, that's like the cry of a very small child, afraid of the dark. And there's a part of you that just sends love. It doesn't mean that you're going to acquiesce to their demands, but you can, with great compassion, send grace to them. You can ask God to show me, all right, Lord, what kind of grace can I give to that? because it can be very offensive, but I also understand that at their core they're hurting, and it's a lot of pain.
I mean, and when you are prideful, there will be a point where you reach the end of that, where you reach the end of yourself, whether through your own, through some existential circumstance, or through some revelation. Somebody reveals that you don't have these actual things that you've claimed, and in the breaking of that, in sort of the revelation, the reaching of the end of self, there is opportunity. When you go through a fall, and when you fall from pride or from any state, you are brought down. You're brought down to a level where you have your intrinsic worth as a being, as a human, as a human being,
as a life.
And from that core, that intrinsic worth, which cannot be taken away from you regardless, you can always build. You can find that as a base, that into the heart. And that level of pride, if you will, that I am somebody, I am a being, can never be taken away from you. I think the reason that pride gets so fragile is that it's artificially inflated. Like anything you inflate and inflate and inflate too much, it becomes quite easy to burst. You have to grow your heart organically. You have to add to it solidly and with true works of compassion and grace and accepting grace and talking and living. You can't just go for it without the steps in between.
It's the value of life. To really understand the value of life, when you have false pride and you understand it's motivated by fear, there's a lot of mental spin going on. I think of it as a bubble of fear that surrounds you, because you keep running around on the outside of the surface of the bubble, trying to make sure that all these structures that you've made are intact, and there's no gapping, so that the air that's actually in the inside of the bubble isn't revealed.
Exactly.
Look how pretty my bubble is. All these myriads of colors.
Exactly.
And then when everything drains out, as it will, as the force of gravity just pulls all that liquid away, the hole appears and the bubble bursts. And that's life in general. Yeah.
And I love that analogy because it's exactly also it's a good one for the Narcissus analogy, or a mirror. A mirror is just a molecule thin surface that reflects back something which looks wonderful but is really empty, hollow. It's just a few beams of light. So when you fill your heart, you fill it with relationships, true relationships with others, whether they're relationships with your family, with your significant other, with those around you, with your team, and that's a solid structure. It's incompressible. To take something from someone's heart is an effort. It's a battle. To take something from someone's pride is no more than just a pinprick, enough to break the surface of that bubble, and it will burst and shatter. And that's the fragility of fear and the fragility of narcissism and pride, and the resilience of the heart and the resilience of true worth almost doesn't need any maintenance. It's just it is what it is.
It is. We're back to the I am. It's understanding that if it is part of the I am, it will continue past any concept or any feeling. Being is who you are. Life is who you are.
It's also very interesting, Mark, because I am still has the I in it. It's when you put the am, when you're amming, when you're not just eyeing, but you are amming. when you're eyeing, it's fragile and prideful. But when you're amming, when you are I-amming, when you are being, okay, then it is solid. So it's like it's very much like the aum. It has to have the fullness of the tones, all the syllables, and then the silence. All that together is the amming. The I is a beginning. Yeah, it's part of it. You have to have the I. When we say people don't say I, it's really an exercise because you need the I. I is good. I are good. I are okay. But but I am is so solid. I am amming. I am being. I am who am is a great, hey man, that's a great phrase you got there. Yeah, I know I'm God. Stop messing with me or I'll smite you. But you know what I mean? That's the whole idea of life is to am, not to I.
Well, we are human beings.
We are human ammings.
That's right. We have to learn how to am more.
It's true, man. And there's no I in am.
Oh my.
Oh my. But now we're getting silly. So again, pride. Pride is something which, when you are proud of who you am, of what you are being, of your being state, it's a wonderful thing. And that's not a sin. That's just realizing. It's appreciating who you am, who you are being.
When you are in that being state, your consciousness expands because you are no longer just I. You are in that expanded state of being, and that is when you can partake or participate in God.
And give and take with others, other ams.
But it's that is the core of the understanding of what divine energy, who God actually is.
Who am he? Who am you am? It's true. And to the extent that you deny it, and say I is to the extent that you alienate yourself from the am. And make yourself a unitary little fragile bubble of I, which can be popped in by any little pinprick.
Yeah,
So take the I out of pride, people, and
yes, and I am Margaret.
She am Margaret, and I am me, and we are them, and this is the soul of Everyman. Thank you very much for listening.
Yes, thank you.